Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fuel Nutrition Coaching and Dr. Mary Morton, scientist and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week, we are going to talk about something that doesn't really affect my life, at all, but affects most people's lives, I would say. Today, we're going to discuss alcohol, and specifically alcohol and being an athlete, and how it affects you as an athlete when you consume alcohol. So just a side note, like I said, this doesn't really affect me because I don't drink, ever. And it's not because I think drinking is bad. I want to make sure that that's very clear. I just have a history of alcoholism in my family, and I got drunk one time and really liked it. So I decided to stop.
Just not going to do that.
Just not going to do it. So.
Yeah. I mean, drinking is fun, but alcoholism is not. So.
So the shirt.
I don't mean to make light of that situation, by the way.
No, it's horrible.
But, okay. So, yeah, anecdotally.
Yeah.
I know drinking alcohol affects my recovery, which in turn affects my performance. Particularly if I'm not just drinking like once, but say I go on vacation and have a couple of drinks every day. The times that I have done that, I've never been so sore in my life. So I know I'm not recovering, right?
Right.
And that also led into some of my overtraining syndrome that happened to me in the fall. Was I had just been on vacation and drinking every day, not to excess, but
no.
I definitely had alcohol every day and continued to train hard while I was on vacation. So that was fun.
Trying to do everything, Kristen, just as usual.
Right. So I know that alcohol is inflammatory. I know it affects my recovery and performance, but I've not ever really truly read the research regarding alcohol in athletes. So I thought it would be a fun episode to look into and let you guys know what the research says.
Yeah, and if you choose to drink or have a drink, how that is going to affect your performance.
Yeah. So there's not a ton of research on this, but the research that exists is pretty compelling. So
let's just jump into
We're going to dive into this. Yeah.
So,
all right.
First and foremost, this was a question that I have, and I know a lot of people have. Are carbs from alcohol equal to carbs from just regular food? No.
They're not.
Okay.
So alcohol is actually considered a macronutrient. It's 7 calories per gram. So carbs and protein are 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. So it's pretty calorically dense, almost as calorically dense as fats. But if you are trying to count calories or count macros and are using some sort of formula to figure out how much you can have and still stay within your parameters, just know you're going to be displacing nutrients that your body actually needs, because the calories that you consume via alcohol are not 100% available to the body for energy.
Right.
And that is because the liver can only process so much in one sitting before the rest is just excreted as urine.
Yeah. Well, and what we were reading is that it said if you have like one drink and you drink it very slowly, your liver can keep up with that, but it has to be one drink consumed very slowly. But if you drink more than that, your liver is going to be overwhelmed and you're not going to be able to use everything that you take.
Which is what leads to becoming drunk. So basically, I guess if you get drunk, then, it's different. Everyone's tolerance is different, right? Then you know that then your body's no longer using that as energy.
So efficient versus non-efficient liver.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways of looking at how at the research for alcohol. So some of the studies will look at what's considered acute alcohol consumption, which means like drinking right now. How is drinking right this second affecting your body? And then we can also look at the chronic effects of alcohol. So drinking
long-term.
Every so often. Yeah, long-term over a period of time. So in general, the acute alcohol consumption affects athletes in a pretty negative way. So it negatively alters our normal immunoendocrine function, our blood flow, protein synthesis. And so your recovery from skeletal muscle injury is probably going to be impaired. And when we say skeletal muscle injury, we're also talking about the microtrauma of training,
which we need to be repaired. Otherwise we don't get stronger.
Yeah, exactly. And then the protein synthesis thing really kind of freaked me out. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So your muscle protein synthesis is going to be less if you consume alcohol or during the acute effects of alcohol.
Yeah. Well, just protein synthesis in general.
Right.
So that's like DNA repair. That's
Absolutely.
Mitochondrial repair.
Yeah. Not just muscles.
In the tank.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It also affects other things related to recovery, such as rehydration. We know that. We know that alcohol dehydrates us. That's part of the hangover, is being dehydrated.
Right.
And glycogen resynthesis. So those two things are affected to a little bit lesser extent than the other stuff, but is definitely a factor, and those things definitely relate to recovery. So we know that it impedes recovery in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple of really interesting studies. These studies kind of make me laugh. Like every time I think about them, I'm like, this must have been really fun for the participants, because basically they worked out and then they drank.
How fun.
Yeah. And in one of the studies, they drank a lot. So I'm just like imagining, them sitting in a lab somewhere. I don't know what exactly how it went. Yeah.
It's probably in a gym, and everyone was like, God, these guys.
Yeah. Right. Well, and this is really common, especially in like CrossFit gyms. They'll like during the open wads and stuff, is that they'll do the open wad and then like have a party afterwards where everyone's drinking. So I thought this was really particularly interesting. So there was one study that I looked at 8 physically active males. They had to complete 3 different experimental trials. And so they did a resistance exercise, which was leg extension. And then they had to do continuous cycling at like peak output, and then high intensity interval cycling.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they had to immediately, as well as 4 hours post exercise, there was 3 groups. So they consumed either 500 milliliters of whey protein, so it was about 25 grams of protein, or they consumed alcohol with protein, or they consumed alcohol and carbohydrates, and they matched this, so that it was all energy matched in terms of calories. Okay. And so then they also had to consume a carbohydrate meal 2 hours post exercise, and then they did muscle biopsies 2 hours and 8 hours post exercise. So pretty comprehensive study.
I would like to just imagine them taking a blender bottle and just dumping a beer into it with protein powder.
Right.
Sounds disgusting.
Right. Does not sound horrible. Yeah, that's my new mixer. I'm going to have vodka and protein.
Oh my God. Ugh.
So what they found was that there were reduced rates of muscle protein synthesis following the exercise, even when it was when the alcohol was co-ingested with protein.
Interesting.
So a reduced rate. So what the researchers concluded was that alcohol ingestion suppressed the anabolic response in skeletal muscle, and therefore impairs recovery and adaptation to training and subsequent performance.
So basically, it's going to negatively hit you everywhere that you need to be not negatively hit.
Exactly. Yeah. And then another study looked at rugby players. And if you've ever known any rugby players,
they drink a lot. At least they do in the movies.
I've never seen a movie about rugby players.
You haven't watched Disney, have you?
No, not in. Okay. Anyhow, so they had a rugby team. They had a match. They did some different assessments of their levels of recovery. They specifically looked at mean and peak power output, but a lot of other things too. And what they found, so they had them, then they drank after their match, and they drank a lot. It was a lot. I think that they each had, like, the average number of drinks, or the mean number of drinks was like 12.
Oh, easy.
Which,
give me some 12 drinks.
if you look at like male rugby players,
they're big.
Yeah, and that's probably not, and especially if they drink a lot, that's probably not like
abnormal.
I mean, I'm sure they were drunk.
Yeah, but it's probably not like abnormal.
It's probably about what they would do.
But if it's someone like you and me,
I think I would die of alcohol poisoning.
I'm pretty sure I would too. Considering I'm half a drink in and feeling like, woo!
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what they found with the rugby players was that their peak power was decreased by 10% for as long as 16 hours post-alcohol consumption.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot.
I was shocked by that. And
a lot of these people, they have their match and then the next day they'll have practice.
Sure, they might. Yeah. And so they also found that their cognitive recovery the next day was decreased, which, I mean, we all kind of know. That's
also rugby. I mean, I could see how this study...
Like maybe some brain injuries during the match.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happens with... Have you seen their helmets? They don't wear helmets.
I was going to say, what helmets?
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So just to recap, 10% decrease in mean and peak power.
And decline in cognitive function.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. We're meatheads. We don't care about how our brains work, do we?
I do. I need that.
Right. So those are the two really fun studies that make me laugh a little bit when I think about them. Like, I just imagine that study occurring at like a rugby party. If you've ever been to a rugby party, they're kind of nuts. Okay. Well, they're nuts.
There's a lot of nakedness. To a rugby party?
Oh, yeah. A lot of nakedness. It's fun. It's a good time.
Oh my God,
I don't mean to generalize, but I've been to a few rugby parties.
It's not like any Disney movie I've watched.
I was going to say, there's Disney about rugby? That sounds shocking.
Remembering a rugby movie. Maybe it's actually just a memory I have of going to a rugby game that I am
Maybe you actually got drunk. And you have some cognitive decline.
Oh my God, we are on to something.
Oh my God, that's
all right.
funny.
Let's talk about recovery.
Yes, recovery.
Because that's super important as a strength athlete. If we are not recovered, we don't perform.
It is. Recovery, I've been doing a lot of research on different recovery methods lately.
Yes, you have.
One of the things that is really interesting in terms of how do we measure recovery, there's a lot of different ways to do it. One of the simplest ways to do it, and I say simple and it still requires some gear. You need to have some sort of a special heart rate monitor, but you can measure what's called heart rate variability. Yeah. And it's just a way to, so that your heart rate variability is the change in length between heartbeats.
Okay. So like slow or fast.
Yeah. So it's not your actual heart rate, like how many beats per minute. It's how much time between the heartbeats and how much does that change over time. Mm-hmm. So the activation or suppression of different parts of your nervous system can change the level of variability. So a greater stimulation of the nervous system will decrease your heart rate variability, which means that the time in between heartbeats, it won't change as much from beat to beat. So, if your
nervous system is intact, if you move a lot or a little, your heart rate won't change that much.
Right. So it's a way of saying, especially looking at like central nervous system fatigue and things like that. And then so the parasympathetic nervous system, when that is activated, that's like our rest and digest. So that's when, if that's why there are, like specialists that will have people do things to stimulate their parasympathetic nervous system post exercise, because it really helps with recovery. So at any rate, there are times when you're under recovered and you can tell by looking at your heart rate variability.
Okay.
So one thing that's really interesting is that studies show that athletes that have one drink of either red wine or ethanol, so I guess some sort of hard liquor, had no effect on heart rate variability. So I thought that was really interesting from the standpoint of moderation.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to what we said at the beginning, the one drink, your liver can handle it.
Exactly.
So it's probably not actually affecting your whole body.
Exactly.
Speculation, by the way.
Right. But after the second drink, their heart rate increased and their heart rate variability decreased, which tells us that it's impacting the nervous system in a negative way. That's going to negatively impact your performance. Another study that was really interesting monitored heart rate variability and sleep quality after alcohol consumption. This was in university-aged healthy males. They had a control group. They had a low-dose alcohol consumption group and a high-dose alcohol consumption group. And so then they monitored their heart rate variability and sleep quality and found that the high-dose group had the lowest heart rate variability value, the highest resting heart rate, and the poorest sleep quality.
Makes sense.
Right. That's kind of what we would expect to find. And then the low-dose group also saw a reduced heart rate variability and an increased resting heart rate and reduced sleep quality as compared to the control group. So even in that study, even somewhat moderate alcohol intake really impacted their ability to recover.
Well, just from a personal standpoint, it wasn't that long ago, maybe like 8 months ago, I had half of a drink and I went to bed and I woke up, like I couldn't go to sleep. I was just anxious. And so I did not sleep that night. And so that makes sense. Yeah.
Alcohol makes me incredibly anxious. So that's part of why I just don't really drink that much anymore. Yeah. I mean, and it kind of makes me sad. Like I love good bourbon and my husband's a home brewer, which I can't drink his beer anyway because of celiac disease, but
damn genetics.
Yeah, I mean, it's, alcohol in terms of a social life is, it's kind of an important part of the social life for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, but then when you start looking at how it impacts your body, especially as an athlete, especially if you've got big goals and are trying to do big things, it definitely has an impact on it.
You have to really prioritize what you want. If you really want a social life, which is fine, you're going to take a hit in your performance and recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not shaming anyone who does. That's fine. You do what you want to do, but just know it has negative consequences.
It does. One of the other things alcohol does that I think anyone who drinks probably knows this, at least on some level, is that it changes the mucosal barrier in your intestines. So it's literally changing the bacteria in your intestines, which can really have an effect on your ability to digest and process protein, carbohydrate, and fat, which is a big deal.
Which is a big deal. Also, your gut bacteria is linked to your brain function.
Absolutely
so,
is. Right.
You don't want to fuck with that.
Right. So yeah, basically the way that I look at it, I don't care what anyone does. I mean, it's your life. But I think that the research shows us that athletes that are participating in intense or heavy training sessions or that have a meet coming up, even just moderate alcohol consumption, you can expect slower recovery and reduced force production in subsequent training sessions. So like you said, you've got to prioritize. So what that looks like for me is that if I'm in a really serious training cycle or a really heavy training cycle or preparing for a meet, I just don't drink at all.
Well, yeah, it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it to me. I'm pretty sure that after my meet that's coming up, I'll probably have a couple of drinks because it is. I'm
going to drive you home drunk.
No,
I will not be drunk.
Not directly after the meet. No. Oh my gosh. Powerlifting meets fuck me up.
Yeah,
man.
You were exhausted at the end.
Yeah.
I told you. I remember your first one. I was like, you're going to be dead by the end of the day. And you're like, no, it's just squat, bench, and deadlift. And you were so dead at the end of the day.
Dead. And I stayed dead for days.
It's hard.
So yeah, no, I won't.
That maybe because you also then turned around and drove 4 hours home.
Yeah, that too.
That probably didn't help.
Probably not. No. Yeah.
The other thing, I can't remember if we mentioned it, is what alcohol does to carbs. Like if you take in alcohol, the consumption of alcohol and the carbohydrates then you then ingest after actually causes, the alcohol will cause your body to, instead of using those carbs as glycogen restores or for energy, it's going to turn around and store them as fat.
Yes.
So alcohol itself taking it into your body not only messes with like your gut microbiome and your ability to recover, it also messes with your ability to use the macronutrients that you do need for energy, performance, and recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge too. So here's the thing. If you're a recreational lifter, like you're just doing it for fun, you don't really care, and really in having like a very balanced life is really important to you, then if alcohol fits in your lifestyle, go for it. Just know that you're going to have a little bit more struggle the next couple of days with training and recovery.
Depending on how much you drink.
But yeah, if it's all about life balance for you, then go for it.
Go for it.
My life is very out of balance on purpose, and I'm okay with that for right now. So
as I breathe heavily, I can feel the anxiety growing in me. No, it's true. It's true. I think it just depends on where you are in your life. If you have big goals, know that if you choose to partake in drinking alcohol, it's going to affect your performance.
Yep.
And this is why we do this. This is why we have these podcasts. So now that you know, now you're informed. If you have the opportunity coming up, and oh, by the way, you have a meet coming up, you may think twice about, okay, I can skip out on this one time because I have a meet in a couple weeks.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Or if you don't care, we don't care.
If you don't care, we don't care. We support you. Whatever you want to do. You want to get drunk every night? Well, okay. Maybe not every night, but like, you want to get drunk? That's fine. We're fine. It's fine. Everything's great.
It's all good.
If you want to mix your protein powder with alcohol, chug it, and then go work out, we don't give a fuck. Okay? This just sounds disgusting. I can't let that go. It sounds horrible. Okay. So I think that's it.
That's it.
That's all. That's what the research has said.
That's what the research says. Like I said, there's not a lot of it. What's out there is really compelling.
Yeah. Yep. So if you guys aren't already, make sure you're part of our Facebook group page, Female Strength Academy. We post articles like this almost every Tuesday, going over the research and trying to bring you guys some really insightful things. And also we do Thursday question and answers, which have been super fun recently.
Super fun.
And keep your eye open because y'all about to see some big changes.
Fun stuff coming.
I know we've been saying that for a while, but like
it's almost here.
Yeah. And we are super excited. And I think that's it.
That's it.
If you have any questions, you can always email us at empoweredbyiron@gmail.com or DM us on the gram at empoweredbyiron. Until next time. Bye.
Bye, ladies.